coming up in today's video. Follow along as I celebrate the winter solstice with some traditional foods, folk tales, crafts, and rituals. We have entered into the solar term of Dongzhi, the winter solstice, also known as the extremes of winter. This is the extreme point of yin energy, a turning point which sees the returning of yang. Yin, here representing darkness, cold and stillness, will slowly wane as we celebrate the return of yang, light, warmth and movement. Here in China, the winter solstice has been celebrated since the Han Dynasty. It is said that around 2,500 years ago, the earliest winter solstice in China was discovered by a sage called Zhou Dan, when he used an ancient type of sundial called Tugui to observe shadows. It was the earliest solar term to be formulated, and since then, the winter solstice, Dongzhi, has been a very important festival in China. In fact, in ancient times, it was the Chinese New Year. During the Tang Dynasty and Song Dynasty eras, officials in the government were even given a 7-day holiday to return home to celebrate the solstice with their family and worship heaven and their ancestors. In the north of China, the eating of dumplings is a common folk custom on the day of the winter solstice. There are many legends which speak of the origins of the custom of eating dumplings at this time. One of my favourite stories is the tale of the cypress tree fairy who was born at the winter solstice in the very city I'm living in, Nanjing. Though this story of course takes place in ancient times, over 1,600 years ago, in the 6 dynasties back when Nanjing was known as Jiankang City. Whilst I begin to tell you this tale, let me start crafting a cypress tree fairy doll from corn husks I've collected. According to legend, during the reign of Emperor Wu of the Liang dynasty, an ancient man presented some tree seeds to Emperor Liang, saying that they had been collected from deep valleys in southern Xinjiang, and thus had gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. He was told that if he were to take great care of them, they would surely bring blessings to the emperor. Emperor Liang looked at the seeds and said, "They're just of a cypress tree." He didn't believe anything special of them, and so just planted them in the palace gardens. 3 years passed, and though no one took care of the seeds, they still took root and sprouted into luscious trees. A few years later, the spiritual energies condensed and became a tree spirit. Emperor Liang strongly believed in Buddhism. He himself did not eat meat and forbade his people to eat or offer any meat as sacrifices to heavenly gods. The gods were displeased when they saw that all tributes were vegetarian and told the Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of heaven, that the people of Jiankang were disrespectful to the gods. The Jade Emperor was also displeased when he heard this, so he ordered the city to suffer a severe drought for 3 years as punishment. The cypress tree spirit couldn't bear to see the people suffer, So on the winter solstice, it transformed into a young girl named Jiao and taught the people to secretly use doe skins as clothing, wrap meat inside and mold them into various shapes to make food and sacrifices. With these, the people of Jiankang City prayed for rain. The Jade Emperor was grateful for their offerings and restored peace and prosperity to the city. The people were happy, and for a time they sung songs of the Cypress Tree Faerie and worshipped her as a god. Emperor Liang heard about her magical powers, and when he saw her beauty, he wanted to take her as his concubine and use her magical powers to rule the world. As Jiao didn't want this, Emperor Liang became angry and killed her to make sure no one else could gain her. After Jiao's death, the Jade Emperor was unjust and set up military general Hou Jing to rebel and starve Emperor Liang to death. He then appointed Jiao as an immortal in charge of grains for the people. The people thanked her and named the food she invented dumplings, and would eat them on the winter solstice, her birthday, in honor of her, and offer them as sacrifices to the gods and ancestors on the winter solstice to show their respect. My tree fairy doll is almost complete, but not without adding some dried cypress leaves that I collected near my home. I've previously talked about the ancient winter solstice sacrificial altar ceremonial site being surrounded by pine and cypress trees. I actually don't live too far from the site, and although the cypress trees in my vicinity are not ancient 1,000-year-old trees, I like to think that they very well may be younger cypresses grown from the ancient winter solstice sacrificial altar ceremonial trees, which give them just that extra bit of power. Cypress is often used in magical spells for longevity, healing, comfort, and protection. In the creation of today's fairy Jiao corners doll, I attached cypress leaves to the front of her dress, behind her headdress, and within her dress for protection and comforting energies. This cypress tree spirit, also known as Fairy Jiao, has protected Jiankang City, modern-day Nanjing, for more than 1,000 years, and its physical tree counterpart actually still exists here and is known as Liu Chao Song, the pine of 6 dynasties. I'll be visiting this sacred site for a doll blessing later on today, but for now, let's enjoy these sweet dumplings. Another popular traditional dish at the winter solstice is mutton soup. This custom is especially popular in the northern parts of China. Personally, I find a bowl of hot mutton soup and a salty pastry bake goes very well with a dish of dumplings. According to traditional Chinese medicine, the winter season has the yin characteristics of cold, damp, and inactivity. When living in harmony with nature, these characteristics cause us to want to slow down, stay warm, replenish our energy, and conserve our strength. With the winter solstice being at the extreme of yin energies, it is important for us to replenish our yang energies at this time for harmonious living. The concept of yin and yang is one of the pillars of Chinese food medicine, where food can have either yang, warm, or yin, cold properties. Lamb and mutton are considered to be of yang energy, and so it is a highly favoured food at this time to consume to counteract the yin, cold of winter. Apart from feasting on delicious food, the Chinese have the custom of worshipping their ancestors at the winter solstice. Many will visit graves, and also offerings will be placed on ancestral altars at home. One such traditional offering I mentioned earlier is that of dumplings. Today I will also be making some mini dumplings from clay with a cypress seed inside as a filling, in honour of Fairy Jiao and the protection she gives this city. Though they are already white in colour, I will be coating them with a mix of white acrylic paint and some snow flour, which is the flour I use for making dumplings, just to give them a bit more of that dumpling energy. The winter solstice is also a traditional time to respect your elders. Gift giving is an important part of Chinese culture, and at the winter solstice there is a custom of gifting elders new shoes and socks to improve family bonds, and also as a blessing of good luck or longevity. These can be either bought from a store, usually in a lucky red colour, or handmade by oneself if one is feeling crafty. Something I like to do at the winter solstice, inspired by this tradition, is an ancestral bond strengthening ritual with some sock offerings made for my ancestors. This ritual is different to the more common offerings rituals made for the yin component of corporeal ancestral souls, which I talked a little about in my Double Night Festival video. Though one can indeed choose to make these offerings and simply burn them in a cauldron or pot in that type of ritual for your ancestors. I also have a generic ancestral offerings chant on my channel that can be used for such purposes. Though for me, I will be using them in a specific chant ritual with specific purposes, that being to strengthen ancestral ties. There are ancestors we've never met, perhaps never even heard of, energies that we can strengthen and tap into. For me, I believe that we came into this life choosing to be born into this body and this family story for whatever reasons or life lessons, etc. they may be. I know hearing that might be quite controversial for some. I've always tried to not get into anything too deep on my channel, but in explaining this ritual, it is necessary to just put that out there as a bit of background on the energies of the chant for those that may also wish to partake in this particular ritual. With a choice to come into this bloodline, one has a powerful line that connects through generations upon generations. That's an incredible amount of blood ancestors. With a choice to be bonded to this specific line at this particular time, there may be ancestors that one intended to connect to and tap into for guidance, protection, etc. during this lifetime that one hasn't even begun to get acquainted with. There may be benevolent doors that have been left open, available and waiting for you that you just haven't known were there, or it just wasn't quite the right time yet. This ritual is to affirm one's knowledge of those ancestral ties, to confirm one's choice to this bloodline, and to honour that line with these offerings to strengthen one's conscious connection to one's own ancestral line, which in turn can aid in the receiving of ancestral communication. Ancestor worship, of course, does not always involve blood relations, but the following chant is specifically for the strengthening of bloodline connections. As mentioned earlier, one can choose to burn these in a different ancestral ritual at this time for a different purpose if they so wish. For these socks, I am using joss paper specifically made for ancestral offerings. I've chosen the colours red, green and yellow for the winter solstice season. Red is an extremely auspicious colour in Chinese culture, representing vitality, luck, happiness and success. You'll see it everywhere in China. It's worn at weddings, it's the colour of the lucky red money packets given at the New Year, and it's the colour most used for Chinese lanterns. I'm using green for health and harmony. This is another very lucky colour in Chinese culture, which can also represent fertility, cleanliness and purity, and is thought to have generative energy. And finally, I'm using yellow for warmth and prosperity. Yellow in Chinese culture symbolises imperiality, prosperity, warmth of the sun and sacredness. It's another highly favoured colour. Many ancient Chinese buildings and temples have yellow roofs, and Chinese emperors of many dynasties wore yellow robes. His carriage was yellow. The banners flown by the emperor during royal inspection tours were also of the colour yellow, and the seal of dynastic power was wrapped with yellow fabric too. So it's a very powerful colour in Chinese culture. They look so cute in these festive seasonal colours and also remind me of those sweet little festive stockings one may hang above the fireplace. With my socks now prepared for tonight's ritual, it's time to first head out to the sacred cypress tree fairy for a blessing on my cornhusk doll. cypress tree spirit, my lady, fairy Jiao. With our meeting, to you I now most respectfully kowtow. I bring with me a doll, handmade with love, in honor of thee, and ask that you please bless her with your empathy and comforting energies. May she bring added protection wherever she may stand. Oh dearest, do bless her like you've so blessed this land. Compassionate spirit of Jiankang City, with my gratitude please accept my offerings to thee. Bless this doll with your love and light, as I wholeheartedly perform this sacred rite. So mote it be. Thank you for joining along with me on today's journey. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe and comment for more content. And I will see you in my next video. Bye! The light reborn within the darkness of old, majestic solstice strewn with dazzling light. My Yuletide evergreen, the solstice.